All right. I'm going to go dive into the deep waters. And Mohammed is on the line with Evidence for God. How you doing? Thanks for waiting.
Yes, hello, Matt.
Hi, Mohammed.
How are you doing?
Doing very well. How about yourself?
Yes, I'm doing fine. I want to speak about my belief in God, the evidences we Muslims have for God. I told the show before, but I didn't feel my points were very clear in my previous calls.
Sure. Okay. So just for clarity, it might be good if you gave like a brief definition of the God that you believe exists. You don't have to go on forever. And then tell us exactly, like start with what you think the best evidence is, because we might have to decide, what should or shouldn't count as evidence, but go ahead.
Okay. As for God, he is a being. He is a being above the world. He is a being with perfect qualities. And this is basically the God of Abraham, who created the world and who maintains it by his will and power. That is who God is, the creator. There are many verses in the Quran which speak about God. There is a very short chapter in the Quran. It is a very valuable chapter because it weighs a third of the Quran actually, and it basically was revealed. We believe when the Meccans, when the tribe of Muhammad ﷺ came to, they were at the time unbelievers in his call. So they came to Muhammad and they said to him, "Describe to us your Lord. What is he made of?" So the Prophet ﷺ recited to them these verses. Say he is God, the One, God the Self-Sufficient. He neither begets nor is born, nor is there to him any equivalent. So that is maybe the shortest you can say definition of who God is.
Well, I was actually the definition you started with as a being. Essentially, you said a perfect being who sustains the world. Yes. That's far more specific than just saying God is the one and is self-sufficient. That's a bunch of sophistry that doesn't actually describe characteristics of God. Saying that God is a perfect being that sustains the world, that's a good enough starting place. So I guess what we need is...
I don't believe it's sophistry, Matt, because when we say as-Samad, it means the one on whom everything depends when he doesn't depend on anything. That is a consequence of him being the creator.
Saying that God is the thing upon which everything else is contingent doesn't even get to whether or not it's a being. That's why I'm saying that there's nothing substantive added there. When you've already said that God is a perfect being that sustains the world, you don't have to say he's the one and is self-sufficient and all that, because those are not as specific.
I was reading the verses, actually.
Sure, but I'm just saying that doesn't help us. But if we go with God being this perfect being that sustains the world, then the next thing we need to talk about is what evidence has convinced you that such a being exists. And I'll warn you in advance, there's a bunch of problems. How could you possibly tell whether a being is perfect or not?
Well, basically, the reason we know that God exists is through the evidences and through the signs which he creates in the world. This is as simple as that. There are things which come into existence and things which go out of existence.
I'm not convinced that anything comes into existence or goes out of existence. So far as I can tell, things simply change state. But even if we assume that something comes into existence, how is that evidence that God is the reason it comes into existence?
Can I speak a little bit about, because I believe that many people, if they knew that things come into existence, I think they will accept that there is someone who's bringing them into existence.
Well, okay.
There is something bringing them into existence.
Here's the problem, Mohammed. I'll let you address that. But first of all, saying that if people believed things came into existence, you think they would be convinced that there's a God that's doing it, that's completely irrelevant. What people become convinced of is independent from what people should become convinced of. So if you want to, you can give me an example of something that comes into existence, but at the end of the day, whether something comes into existence or something just changes state and you want to label that as coming into existence,
Yes.
that is separate from how do we know what caused that?
How do we know what caused that?
Yeah, you're saying that.
So
you're saying that. Okay. Like, give me an example of something you think comes into existence.
Okay. I believe that trees, human beings.
Okay, we'll just go with human beings. Let's just go with me.
Yes.
You think that I came into existence. I think
Yes.
that I am merely a conglomeration and rearrangement of atoms that existed prior to that.
Yes.
But I will agree that this package, this meat sack thinking entity, there was a period in time where Matt didn't exist, and there's a period of time now it does. I think we're just dealing with labels here. But we'll go with me.
No, there's no label, Matt. Just a second. Because you are only the sum of your components. You're the sum of those atoms and components, and if there is a soul, you're the sum of that. You're the sum of whatever is you. Whatever is.
Yes, that's essentially what I'm saying.
Components.
That this big meat sack, this thinking meat sack, is something we call Matt. And your view is that Matt came into existence, and I'm going to set aside that point, because whether we're just talking about Matt as the label for this current state of this arrangement of matter, what I'm saying here is that it doesn't matter to this discussion. You're saying that because
very much.
Muhammad, hang on.
Very much, man.
You are saying that I came into existence and somehow this is evidence for God, correct?
I'm saying that because you came into existence, God, therefore God. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's what I asked. So the answer is yes. Please explain how my coming into existence, whether it happened or not, is irrelevant. We can, dicker about whether or not I'm just a rearrangement. Please explain how my coming into existence is evidence for God.
Okay. Basically, there are two ways to know God's existence through his signs. The first
through signs?
Through the signs, observing the signs.
Okay.
Okay. The first is intuitive. So, we believe, as Muslims, and we observe this in many people, and they know God intuitively without need of rational arguments.
Yeah, I reject that wholeheartedly as
that's not evidence.
Yes, I know that.
Okay.
I know that. But if that doesn't work, if that intuition somehow got changed, you have to rely on some rational arguments.
Yes, that's all I care about is rational arguments, but particularly not just rational arguments, but rational arguments supported by evidence. The note here said you had evidence for God, and I've outlined this and specifically asked for the evidence, and instead of giving the evidence, you're telling me that you could know it by intuition or perhaps a rational argument. I want the evidence that shows that my coming into existence is explained, best explained or properly explained by God.
Yes, okay. But promise me that you'll give me time to explain to people why things begin to exist.
I promise you. See, here's the thing.
Okay.
The show has time limits, and so if it's going to take you 40 minutes to get there, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you speak. But here's the thing. Try not to get sidetracked, because all we want to know is what is the evidence from my coming into existence that necessarily or likely leads to God. Okay.
طيب. First of all, if you come into existence, there are some options which you have to consider. Basically, there is a verse which speaks about this.
I don't care about verses. I don't care about verses.
I know that.
Let's get to evidence.
I'm speaking about a rational argument presented in a verse. So, regardless of whether it is mentioned in the Quran or mentioned in the Bible or mentioned in any book, one has
just present the argument. I don't need the history of it.
Yes. We came into existence. We could not have been brought into existence by nothing. We could not have been brought into existence by ourselves. Therefore, something external must have brought us into existence.
Yeah, here's the thing, though.
Like the attributes, and to come to who that creator is, we have to we have to look at the rational arguments for the attributes of that creator.
We need to pause, because first of all, I came into existence through a process of my parents having sex, and purely of matter and chemicals and natural things. So what you're talking about isn't so much that my coming into existence is evidence for God, but you seem to be suggesting that the existence of people, or the existence of life, must be explained by a God. And, and the problem is that you're wrong. The correct...
I don't believe that.
Well, I'm getting ready to explain it to you.
Yes.
At some point in the universe, there wasn't any living thing, correct?
Okay.
And then, at some later point in time, living things existed, correct?
Yes.
Now, how did living things come to exist?
They came into existence. How they came into existence? Through the natural causes which led them to that existence. But the question is who brought them into existence?
No. The question is not who. The question is, what is the explanation? Because when you say who brought them into existence, when you say who brought them into existence, you are presuming that the answer must be a being. And the correct question is, what is the explanation for life? And if it turns out that it's a turns out that it's a being, then the being's the right answer. But the only way you can know that it's a being is to actually provide evidence that it is a being. How do you do that?
Yes. There are natural causes in the world.
Correct.
One thing causes another.
Yes.
That is true.
As far as I'm aware, those are the only causes.
No rational person will deny natural causality.
Well, I would agree with you.
How do you get to a being?
How do we get to a being?
How do you get to a non-natural explanation?
The fact that those things come into existence, and this is my claim, and I want to explain it later, the fact that those things come into existence cannot be explained by other things which came into existence.
No. You're asserting that it is not possible for there to be a natural explanation. Do you know everything about the natural world?
I know that there are natural explanations.
You are asserting, Muhammad, you are asserting that there can be no natural explanation for the origin of life. That's what you just said.
No, there can be a natural explanation. No. There must be. I think there is a natural explanation.
Then why a minute ago did you say these things can't be explained by natural explanation?
No, the fact that they come into existence.
Sure.
The temporal origination.
You are saying that the coming into existence of things cannot be explained naturally.
Yes.
How do you know that?
Cannot be explained by another creature.
So who cares? The fact that it does. First of all, my existence is explained by another creature, and the origin of every individual life beyond the initial abiogenesis is explained by it being derived from another natural creature. And as far as we know, while we don't have an explanation for abiogenesis, there's no reason to say that there's not a natural explanation. And yet your entire argument is there cannot be a natural explanation for abiogenesis. Therefore, I'm justified in asserting a supernatural one.
No, I am not saying that at all.
Okay.
I believe in natural causes.
Okay.
I am saying that God is the creator of the cause and the effect.
How do you know that?
Because how do I know that? Because the cause comes into existence and the effect comes into existence. One thing perishes.
So God comes into existence?
No, I'm saying that
if you say that God is the cause of the cause, then that has to come into existence as well. But also,
that is correct. If you mean by cause, a natural cause or means, or like what's the word? Because causes actually. And what do you mean by cause?
Well, right now, I'd like you to get to some actual evidence for God, because so far what you've done is claim that the origin of life cannot be explained by natural explanations, and you can't tell us how you.
Explained that.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't claim that. I claim that God creates things by their causes. He brings the cause and the effect into existence.
How do you know that?
And how do I know that? Because natural causality exists. It's not
the existence of natural causality does not in any way affirm that there's an external supernatural cause for natural causality.
If those things were eternal, but they are not eternal. Basically, I believe that there are, let's say, events within the Creator.
I no longer care what you believe. I'm asking for evidence, as I have been for quite a while now. What evidence? Not argument. Hang on. Not argument. Not what you believe. You called with evidence for God. And so far, we have gotten nowhere near anything that should count as evidence for God. Do you have any?
Yes, if you just listen to me.
I've been listening to you.
I really know the answer.
All right, you have 2 minutes to present some evidence, because if we keep going in circles about arguments related to causality, that's not evidence.
Okay. If I began to exist, if I have a point in time where I began to exist, there must be something that brought me into existence. Okay? And every action subsisting in me must be equally brought into existence. So if I beget a child, I wouldn't be creating that child. That action would itself be created within me. That is the evidence. Because
that is not evidence. Okay, you don't understand the difference between evidence and an argument. You are making an argument, and it is contingent on your premises being true in order for the argument to be sound. And your premises are essentially assertions, but none of those get you to God. None of those are evidence for God. At the end of the day, what we could say is that, why is there something rather than nothing? And the answer is, we don't know. Maybe it couldn't have possibly been another way, but if you want to say that something had to bring things into existence, you have to actually not only demonstrate that there can be no natural explanation, which you can't do because you don't know everything, or you can demonstrate, or you can demonstrate that there must then be a supernatural explanation, and then after you do that, you would have to demonstrate that the best candidate of all supernatural explanations is God, and you would have to do that by presenting evidence, not just yeah. So where's the evidence? Because you've wasted a minute and a half.
Basically not, because things come into existence, it's that simple.
But they don't.
If you realize that things come into existence,
they don't.
At the beginning. I'll tell you. I haven't explained why I believe that they do. But if you...
I already granted you... I tried to avoid this earlier. I granted that for the sake of argument, we can assume things come into existence, even though I don't accept that proposition because I think it sets up an equivocation fallacy, which you are using. But even if I grant that things come into existence, the fact that something comes into existence is not evidence for what caused it to come into existence. You have to provide evidence for what the cause is. What is the evidence that God is the cause of things coming into existence?
Otherwise, you're just assuming that God did it. You're saying these things happened, therefore God did it. But how do you get to God did it?
I will ask you 3 questions, Matt. Just 3 sequential questions.
You want to ask? Wait. You want to ask me 3 questions?
Related to the topic.
I don't. Okay. Here's the thing. This isn't a quiz show or an interview. You called to present evidence for God, something you have consistently failed to get close to, and now you want to ask me questions.
No, just to illustrate to you the point.
Go for it. 3 questions.
Okay. Do you believe a creature? Do you accept that a creature cannot possibly create itself?
Yes. Well, no, hang on. Let me revise that. I have no evidence that a creature could create itself. That doesn't mean that I'm convinced that it's not possible.
I don't know what to say. say.
Yeah, I know you don't know what to say. This is the thing. This is the thing about propositional. This is the thing about propositions. This is Muhammad. Stop. This is the thing about propositions and evaluating them. In order for me to say that it's impossible, I would have to. Possibility needs to be demonstrated, and impossibility needs to be demonstrated. So I can't say that I'm convinced that it's impossible. What I can say is I have no compelling evidence to believe that a creature could create itself. I have plenty of evidence that every creature that we've examined or would have access to did not in fact create itself in any sense that we can identify. That does not mean that it's impossible. I can say that the overwhelming evidence is that it is incredibly unlikely, if not impossible, that a creature could create itself. All of those things are plausible when you address the proposition. Question 2.
It is, Matt, it is very irrational to say that things can create themselves.
I didn't say that it was. This is the problem. This is the problem.
It is very irrational. Yes, I'm sorry. It is very irrational to claim that...
I don't give a rat's ass because I didn't claim that, Muhammad. Why are you telling me? You might as well be saying it's irrational to think that the sky is pink and pukes out pea soup. That is as relevant to this conversation as saying that it is irrational. Because here's the thing. It can be irrational for someone to say that it is possible for a creature to create itself. And that tells you nothing about whether or not it is rational or irrational to believe that it is impossible for a creature to create itself. They're two separate propositions.
You don't accept that it is impossible for a creature to create itself. This is where the contention is.
You don't understand, Muhammad. I'm trying to explain to you. Here, can you? There's a jar of gumballs on this.
I listened to your example.
I don't give a rat's ass. I'm doing it again. Do you agree that there's either an even or an odd number of gumballs in here?
I don't know until I count them.
You don't know that there has to be either an even or an odd number of gumballs in here?
No, there has to be either an even or an odd number.
Correct, right?
Mm.
So the number of gumballs in this jar has to be either even or odd, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a rational justification for believing that the number is even?
Not yet.
Sorry?
Not yet. I don't have...
Not yet. Cool. We agree. Now, does that tell me anything at all about whether or not you're convinced that it's odd?
It doesn't. It does.
It does?
No, it doesn't. Because
correct, it doesn't. So if you were to tell me that you are not convinced that the number is even, and I were to say it's irrational for you to think it's odd, wouldn't that be irrelevant?
Yeah,
it would be.
Because I have an evidence. I have evidence for why things cannot create themselves. That is why.
Now, so evidence for the proposition that creatures have not created themselves is independent from whether or not whether creatures could create themselves. But are you going to get to the second question, or am I going to get to the second caller?
Well, if you accept that a creature cannot create itself, then the second question would be whether you accept that the sum of those creatures can create themselves.
No, here's the thing. Here's the thing. First of all, we need to get to your second question, but we don't have to do this in the abstract or in the universal. I can agree that I did not, as far as I'm aware, create myself. And so the question then is, how did I come into being? And the answer is, my parents had sex.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. I'm coming to this question, a specific question.
Okay.
You're basically saying that your parents created you.
No, I'm not saying that my parents created me. I'm saying that my parents had sex, and the natural process of chemicals and matter interacting resulted in something that we eventually labeled Matt.
Yes, so there was an action within your parents that gave rise to you.
Yes, and can we stop talking about my parents fucking, because it's a little disturbing for a lot of people.
I'm sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm just saying that when parents beget, you see, this is an action.
Yes, sex is an action.
Yeah.
We know Matt's parents exist.
This is the act of begetting.
Yeah.
The creature, the human being, the baby which is born, okay?
Maybe.
He results from
or she.
that action. Yeah, he or she. It results from that action.
Sure. Sometimes, yes,
it results from that action. But you cannot say that that act is an act of bringing that baby into existence.
Correct. And not only did I not say that, I said the exact opposite. And I began by saying that this notion of coming into existence is a little bit of a mind game that we play by labeling new formations of matter with new labels.
No. I'm saying
yes. That's what
that things come into existence.
No, we don't. No, we don't know that things come into existence. What we know is that matter changes patterns, and we change the labels we apply to it. But at the end of the day, I'm in agreement.